I think this is a good beginning. Let me tell you a story about a man and his family, and I swear that it is true. You see, it is always a good start to quote someone else, someone famous. It sets the mood and shows that we share a world of arts and ideas. This is the world that I like to share with others. I am not interested in sharing my flat with strangers. The thing is, I am not the man I was talking about. I am the family. I am the son, who of course wasn't asked if he wanted to leave the country he was born in. I am the kid which parents decided for him that money and career are more important than becoming a full member of a society that you were born into and spent years accepting it as the norm. Yes, this is a podcast that deals with migration, a topic that is widely discussed. It should be. It has to be. But there is something specific that I don't like. Whenever I read about it, and I do it quite often, it is the same old fight between liberals who want more of it, all of it, and the bad guys, the conservatives who want less of it, none of it. Isn't that boring? Since when is the world so black and white? And the other thing that bugs me is that whenever a migrant speaks, it's about escaping hell and having a better future. Am I really the only one who had to leave his birth country and is pissed about it? Am I the only one who remembers brain drain and what it does to countries? I mean, I remember a time about 20 years ago when at the University of Frankfurt, professors spoke about a phenomenon of brain drain and how it should be stopped. Why? Well, to help the third world countries. Now everybody talks about how great migration is because it helps us not having kids and being free and not having to give a frack. But let's get a little more personal. The country that I was moved to when I was 11 years old is called Germany. That's the reason why my English sounds so off. But I don't want to do this podcast in German. I don't want the Germans to understand me. I want this to be a private thing between me and you, dear listener, who speaks no German. The truth is that my father died a few months ago, and on his deathbed he had the urge to ask me if I was angry at him that he dragged the family to Germany. I said no. It was the truth, and a lie. I would never blame a man for doing what he thought was right. But I just don't understand why families all around the world think that there cannot be anything more important than having well-paid jobs and jetting around the globe for Instagram pictures. No, that is a lie. I know why they do it. I know why my father thought it, because he grew up in a communist country and there was nothing else to adore but the things you see and do and taste and so on and so on. I know that you, dear listener, will probably not accept my insight. And don't get me wrong, I accepted people free from war and death. But the story that I am telling you right now is of a different kind, and not everybody who leaves is running away from death. And now I live in Greece. I moved again, but this time it was my decision. The only nice thing that I can say about Germany is that from a certain angle, in a certain light, the nature can look quite beautiful. But that wasn't enough to keep me there. It rains a lot, so there is no certain light needed to see that beauty. And yes, there are some friends that I made along the way, but even that is a complicated topic for a different episode. I spent 29 years in Germany. I grew up in Germany. I have fond memories of Didi, Gottschalk, Bully, music by Xavier Naidoo, and of course the greatest German showmaster Stefan Raab. I am happy that he's back on TV screens, but those 10 years without him felt so symbolic to me. There was nothing left to stay for, in that God-forsaken country. But what really makes me angry is that a big part of my memories is somehow connected to Germany, and when I remember them, there is no happiness. I feel like those memories have no worth for me anymore. They are in the wrong language. They have the wrong backdrop. My knowledge of the language, culture, and history gives me no strength, no feeling of belonging. It is something that makes me angry because I cannot replace them with other memories that would be more helpful for my new life in another country. It is also useless. It leads to nothing, just bitterness. Is my decision to move from Germany to Greece in some way comparable to the decision of my family to leave Serbia? Well, maybe not, but still I cannot stop comparing them. When we decided to move, we did it not because we thought that our children would have a better job and more money to fly to Bali or Abu Dhabi. We did it because we were convinced that they need a country which they can call truly home, not on the basis of having a job, but on the basis of a shared culture that is worth living for. So let's get dark, really depressing. What if we are all lying to ourselves? Maybe there is no happiness for the people coming to Western Europe, and it was never possible for me to be happy by growing up in the place that I was also born in, with people who can correctly pronounce my name and like the same food and sing the same songs and more than once like to do the same things. Maybe I would have hated it and wanted to go live in a society where corruption isn't destroying everything and making everybody feel like they're not worth to be a member of the successful European countries. Nevertheless, I remember going to Serbia a few years ago. I didn't stay long, and I'm not sure anymore what the reason for my visit was. What I remember very clearly is the special feeling I had all the time I stayed there, a feeling that was completely new to me. The all-consuming sensation of hopelessness, this knowledge that no matter what we try, this country will never rise above its failures, and it will never offer its residents the future that movies from the West like to promise. And instead of feeling depressed, I felt unbelievably relieved. I felt content. I think today that this experience made it possible for me to move to Greece. It reminded me how much I dislike the busy vibe in Germany, this vibe of always running after optimization and success and opportunity, thinking that everything is fine because the whole world wants to come and have a job. I mean, live in Germany. Home sweet home. So that was the moment I realized that it is time to move to somewhere where there is slightly more hopelessness and maybe even bitterness. And then, of course, COVID happened, and I understood I wouldn't be able to stay in this country that hates freedom so much. So I moved to one which hates freedom even more. Oh, the irony. And every country has its own vibe. That is why we love, for example, the holiday we had in Italy less than the one we spent in Spain. And at some point, I just couldn't take more of Germany. I asked myself, what is it in this country that strangles you? When the former German Interior Minister of Germany made critical comments in the refugee debate, he was harshly reminded that his Huguenot ancestors came to Germany as refugees. 400 years have passed since then, and for the supposedly tolerant left, he is still not German enough. Should someone who came here in Germany always remain the person who wasn't always here in Germany? Shouldn't he be allowed to arrive at some point? And then you've got a clown like Jan Böhmermann, who still does this very German thing of knowing everything better and saving humanity from itself. He hates conservatives, and he despises them even more when they have foreign-sounding names. So he attacks Stanislav Tillich. Böhmermann thinks he is so clever, so he asks, does Stanislav Tillich know how ridiculous German conservative populism sounds coming from the mouth of someone whose first name is Stanislav? But I ask him back, does Jan Böhmermann know how ridiculous it sounds when someone called Jan Böhmermann takes away another person's right to express themselves because their name sounds less German? Yes, by Odin's beard, what else does Stanislav Tillich have to do to prove himself so that someone with a German name finally accepts him as German enough? When I think of Germany at night, I always have to pee. Not the joyful, satisfying urination after a long evening at the cinema, when you didn't dare leave the cinema for too long because the film was so exciting. I mean the agonizingly short urination in a painful, endless loop because you gave into masturbation instead of going to the toilet at the right time. Yes, that's Germany too, for me at least. So, this first episode that you have now finished for some crazy reason is of course just the beginning, an introduction. Now you know some of my thoughts and you might decide to come back and get a deeper dive in some of the topics. Yes, this is something like a pilot episode for a continuing story. And if you like the beginning, then see you in another episode, brother.